Right, so it's probably not a surprise to many of you who watch my videos that I get comments pretty much on any content critical of Keir Starmer or Labour generally these days that say stuff along the lines of, we need to vote Labour to get the Tories out. I'm holding my nose and voting Starmer. We need to get the Tories out to get change. I'm voting to get the Tories out so we can get PR, proportional representation. That's another one that I've seen. Some get more aggressive, saying I must be a Tory for not voting Labour or for daring to hold Starmer to account, to which the easy answer would be to tell them I left Labour because of Starmer. What makes Starmer so special he shouldn't be held to account? And I didn't join the Tories over it. But that's not the answer they really want. They're not going to get the answer they want from me, nor are they going to get me advocating to back a compromise candidate, let's call it. Somebody to get rid of the current government, but not ideal in and of themselves. Somebody they hope will be better, because it's been done before. We got Blair. He was a red Tory. He did some good things, sure start centres, tax credits that helped ordinary people, but these were far outweighed by other policies that just carried on with what the Tories were doing. The ongoing privatisation of the NHS, warmongering, not repealing anti-trade union laws, which should have been a no-brainer for a Labour government, etc., etc. He won people over, though. He sold them a vision, so not really voted in as at least worst option, at least not to begin with. But there are more examples of why this belief is a mistaken one going back further. It simply doesn't work. But if you want a clear conclusion to what happens when you vote for the least worst option, when you vote for somebody who has sold you a pup, who hasn't been straight and honest about how they intend to run the country. If you want a warning about voting for somebody like Keir Starmer in the sole mistaken belief they'll be better than what we've got now, then look no further than France. Keir Starmer is in many ways a hypernasal, brylcreemed version of Emmanuel Macron. And look at the shit he's in now. But again, the warnings were there about him too. Macron was a guy who came out of nowhere, launching his own party, 39 years of age at the time, all he was when he became president, fresh-faced and swinging in to occupy that mythical, fabled centre ground, Blairite style. French politics very much defined by being on the left or the right, as it was. He basically did in France what Blair did here in 1997, presented himself as something very different, wasn't of the old guard, radical, yet ended up demonstrating once in that he was anything but. Starmer's cut from the same cloth, though, well, fresh-faced is a push these days. He seems to be aging rather fast. Anyway, charisma, broad appeal, liberal policies that attracted the left, whilst easing off restraints on business appealing to the right. Macron pushed all the right buttons to bring in the voters from all sides. But as I say, the promises made weren't lived up to, and it wasn't long before he got nicknamed the president for the rich after he slashed wealth taxes for the wealthiest. There was his recent slipping off of his expensive watch gaff the other day, and that bonding with the elite types in France shouldn't actually be so surprising, given that his background is as an investment banker. He cut his teeth in politics in the socialist government of Francois Hollande, it should be noted, but then he effectively stabbed them in the back and set himself up as head of a brand new centrist party instead, to the right of them. I'm sure the parallels between that and how Starmer conducted himself whilst in the shadow cabinet of Jeremy Corbyn, the betrayal of the Labour Brexit position, which caused so much damage ahead of the 2019 general election, and how Starmer has conducted himself since, not setting up a new party, of course. The French political system made that a bit easier to do. But here, where it isn't, he has instead changed Labour back into an elitist, donor-chasing party that has veered back towards that centre ground and, to be honest, has kept going right ever since. There's nothing liberal in how Labour has conducted itself under his Stalin-esque actions of authoritarianism and purging members, not to mention its failures to tackle racism in all its forms. Francois Hollande has become one of Macron's most ferocious critics since, quite understandably. Macron's defection, if you like, to set up his own party, split the Socialist Party effectively. It was a bit of a Gang of Four moment insofar as the damage it did. And with the Republican Right Party, their equivalent of the Conservatives, scandalised by financial irregularities of their man, Francois Fillon, giving paid jobs to family members. There's a familiar story, isn't it? The 2017 presidential election, that first put Macron in power, was a case of, by the time of the runoff, voting Macron to keep the fascists of Marine Le Pen out. Vote Macron to keep the far right out. Vote Starmer to keep the Tories out. You see how it works? The 2022 presidential election saw Le Pen make some inroads into Macron's dominance slightly, but the same argument was put to the French people again then, as was in 2017. And so for many, they held their noses again. And again, they voted for the least worst option. Macron got re-elected in spite of himself, not because of him. Macron's rule now in its sixth year has been notable in this country, mostly, though this is hardly well broadcast off of social media, by the strikes that have repeatedly hit France. They will go on strike. They will take to the streets whenever they know they're getting shafted. And in the latest examples, it's been over pension reforms, where Macron raised the age of retirement from 62 to 64. Yeah, and our government's pushing to keep us working until we're in our 70s now. So why aren't we out on the street? Why aren't we being more like the French? A lot of people are asking it. What is the point of the Trade Union Congress, TUC, when it only ever seems to sit on its hands, eh? Anyway, that's another argument. It seems this pension move, which Macron in his typical sneering, I know best attitude, rammed these reforms through anyway, has been the last straw. The rioting in France has been the most fearsome yet seen, more so than the yellow vest movement, which many of us thought might topple him. But with 70% of French people opposed to his pension reforms, plus them being hit by a cost of living crisis at the moment as well, especially over their energy bills, far more reliant on Russian gas than we are. He's so detached from the reality of the lives of ordinary working class people, so confident in his own lack of functionally electable opposition, that he carries on regardless. Holed up in the Elysee Palace he is at the moment. It's little wonder people are burning placards of him, calling him Le Roi Macron, King Macron. And, well, we all know what the French did with their monarchy, don't we? Macron's La Marche party has now been renamed Renaissance, but it's got no grassroots movement behind it anymore. They've abandoned it. What passes for his party these days is whatever the media spin for him. Streets are on fire. Macron is like that meme of the dog in the burning room going, everything's fine. And so does Starmer. Like Macron, he's had that high-flying career. Lord knows he can't stop harping on about being Director of Public Prosecutions. But although Macron's background shares more in common with Rishi Sunak's, the parallels of being in a position of privilege are there here as well. And with privilege comes a mindset of thinking that you know better. You can see it in his ambition to be Labour leader, how cutthroat he was, sabotaging Corbyn's leadership to promote his own chances. Macron, prior to becoming an investment banker, was asked when he was a lowly financial inspector what he'd be in 15 years' time, to which he reputedly said, I'll be president. He did what he had to. He did it to Hollande's party as Starmer did to his own. The grassroots movement Macron built up has dissipated. The grassroots movement Starmer inherited had to utilise at his fingertips if he'd kept his promises to continue the movement Corbyn had built up. He also spurned. The money in Labour's coffers wasted. The Blairites of the past have returned to Starmer's advisers. His plans for the country either unknown or just amounting to a little bit of tinkering, not really diverging from what the Tories have done. He makes much of his alleged working class background, but like Macron, has long forgotten any such roots, and being bought and paid for by donors, he will do their bidding, not ours. In Emmanuel Macron, you have the warning of what happens when you vote for the least worst option. Personally, I think Starmer could actually be worse than the Tories. Not that I would ever advocate voting for the Tories in any way, shape or form, but it's for that reason I cannot and I will not countenance a vote for Starmer's Labour either. For that party to be an actual opposition, a vehicle for change, it has to begin with Starmer's removal. You can't trust anything he says. He's done. But given how effectively he has routed rank-and-file members, seized control of all the major bodies, stuffed it with cronies, that isn't likely to be enough in and of itself either. That's a vision for the country should he win power. For me, the Labour Party is dead. It's an obstacle to the change we need now. And Starmer, like Macron, is anything but the answer to making things better and improving the lives of ordinary working class people, something that drew so many of us to the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated this video, please do hit like and subscribe, leave a comment and hit the notification bell too so you don't miss the next one. Also look out for me on social media and other interesting stuff by clicking on the Linktree link in the comments below. And I will see you next time. Cheers, folks.